CAA has always been a space of possibility. It operates within states of transition, both external and internal. One example is the shift from printed publications to electronic media. Another is the shift from old art history to new in response to questions of Western hegemony. CAA necessarily responds to the often competing needs of its constituencies of art historians, artists, and art educators, whose separate priorities are also often in a state of flux. Now, I was president of CAA from 2004 to 6. My own background is in the interrelationships among art, science, and technology. At the time I was president, I taught the history of art and science, as well as conducting hands-on courses at Brooklyn College. CAA can offer artists like me who wear several hats, in my case as artist, educator, writer, and curator, some wonderful opportunities. Many regard the annual conferences as the heart of the CAA. The panels are often responsive to the tumultuous changes in the political and cultural environments. The conference is, of course, a professional venue for art historians, studio practitioners, and educators, along with independent scholars, curators, and critics. The relationship of the organization of the organization to exhibitions is best characterized, I feel, as one as ebbs and flows. As critic and artist Louis Finkelstein reported in 1969, quote, exhibition of creative work is to be regarded as analogous to publication in other fields, end of quote. He and many others have emphasized how critical exhibiting artwork is to an artist's development. CAA has long maintained a category of professional practices, a museum committee, and a history of exhibitions that underscores this importance. Part of my chapter and Kristen Tierney's details the varied exhibitions held by CAA. For today, I really want to emphasize that for many artists, the opportunity to show work at CAA was transformative, particularly when held during the annual conference. In a recent conversation with sculptor Don Percaro, now Emeritus Chair of the Fine Arts Department at Parsons, I asked him what his students thought about the MFA exhibitions that were often held in conjunction with the CAA conferences. He singled out the exhibitions held that took place over a decade ago when 15 different MFA programs had assembled and exhibited from all over the metropolitan area, including SUNY, Brooklyn, SVA, Pratt, Parsons, and New Paltz. He said they were critical to student development, and he further said that even online exhibitions were preferential to CAA not holding any exhibitions. Don pointed out that students would typically not have had the experience of putting a show together and installing work, but the access to CAA members on a nationwide basis was really key to the success of the exhibitions for these students. The shows were packed not only with participating students, but with critics, writers, and art historians from the general membership. Let's consider some of the reasons that CAA has had exhibitions in tandem with the conference and why I, for one, would very much like to see this continue into the future. Reason one, some exhibition programs that CAA developed originated out of a frustration with the exclusion and limitations of the mainstream art world. As the Girls documented with humor and sincerity, discrimination against women was rampant. Women have been marginalized in the arts and also, by the way, in the sciences. Discrimination against minorities has also been very evident in the past and in the present. In addition, CAA, in holding exhibitions, could preserve public space for non commercial art practices and discourse. At the least, artists want ways to participate in culture in a way that is not dependent on a gallery system or mercantile art economy. Reason two, as Caroline Jones brilliantly showed, the locus of artistic practice has shifted from one that is studio based to collaborative and transdisciplinary, often on people's computers. Exhibitions have exemplified this shift. This shift and change of focus has fed into a deep interest in art as research and the artist as researcher. Students learn to apply and integrate their thinking and knowledge about art making to other fields of cultural production, including, in my case, science and ecology. In addition, the advent of the PhD for artists has emphasized art research. In 2012, a graduating member of Bard College's Center for Curatorial Studies, who until recently was a curator at the New Museum, itemized some of the changes the PhD would likely bring about. Helga Christofferson's point in 2010 was, quote, essentially the university, specifically with new emerging PhD programs, does become art and does become an even more active site for production, exhibition, and mediation of art, end of quote. But it seems to me that the PhD has also had the effect of validating artists' writings and publications apart from their more traditional roles as offering insights into a given artist's practice alone. Indeed, as Paul Jascott wrote in this book, there is more conceptual overlap between artists and art historians now, as seen in their writings. So the PhD raises new questions. How will doctoral programs in studio art affect the MFA? How have MFA holding artists been affected by the increase of part-time positions and cancellation of many full-time teaching jobs? Do CAA-sponsored exhibitions significantly count toward gaining its artist members' credibility for desirable tenure track positions? Point three, my point is that digitization, the internet, and the attendant globalization have focused artistic attention on both technology and science. Author Arthur Miller points out that a new art movement, a new fusion of art, science, and technology, known as the third culture, has replaced the split between the humanities and sciences. We are actively seeing the emergence of new forms of art today. We see this challenge in educational practice among young artists and art historians. Witness the STEM to STEAM movement. At this point in time, I see that my own interests are well aligned with the younger generation of artists who are born digital. Many younger artists are interested in AI, virtual and augmented reality, and robotics, and they look for places they can get these skills. The membership of CAA artists includes increasing numbers of artists working with interactive new media, sound art, bioart, ecological restoration, really important now, and some who work collaboratively with others, including with scientists. They have interest in programs that rely on research and collaboration that will enable them to reframe contemporary issues through hybrid and interdisciplinary forms. So, how do we and how do I imagine CAA's future? To answer this, we need to know who CAA's audience is and will be. Look at what's happening in art today. What I wrote in 2009 has become more true now. Many additional ad hoc resources provided by groups sharing particular interests have arisen. For example, Gen Space in Brooklyn, which explores genomics. Uh, we see over 45 Leonardo evening meetings that are known as lasers. Affiliate groups have taken up some of the slack in arranging shows in conjunction with the conference. CAA Service to Artists Committee, implemented by Nori Sato, has been wonderful. The New Media Caucus and Art Exchange, implemented by Beauvais Lyons, has been useful, and Leonardo, as an affiliate of CAA, who I was really happy to have brought in as an affiliate, have had some very successful programs at CAA, as did the Women's Caucus for Art before they split to form their own entity. Through all these affiliates, the conference has afforded artists some visibility and ways to connect with other CAA members. They provide opportunities for artists to share their works and build affinity with other artists, historians, curators, and cultural producers. So going forward, CA, in my opinion, should be attracting artists, not just in MFA programs, but definitely them, but those in new transdisciplinary programs, such as we see at OCAD in Canada, where one is offered an interdisciplinary master's in art, media, and design, as well as those in PhD programs. These programs encourage artists to investigate and produce works that combine art, design, writing, and interdisciplinary academic study to create new forms of visual and social research and creative production. CAA needs to keep attracting members of alternative programs such as the Whitney Museum Independent Study Program. Many of these programs produce highly competent art graduates without offering formal academic qualifications. New programs, especially those focused on technology, have sprung up. For example, New Ink, which is hosted by the New Museum. There's a lot of attraction by younger artists and art historians to these programs. Many popular residency programs, such as BANF, bridge education and practical professional support. One of CAA's success stories has been this urge to meet the needs of younger artists who, in the end, of course, must define their own institutional structures. They should have the opportunity to experiment with exhibition protocols and create a context for practices that are not supported by the dominant art market. One very logical place to do this is a program of exhibitions in tandem with CAA's annual conference. And the reason, the organization's resources of conference and publications really facilitate an exchange of ideas and can well enhance a program of exhibitions. So happy to have the opportunity to give these thoughts to you.